the audience for having me and allowing me to talk about something that's very important to me, human-centered design and how it supports organizational transformation. I titled this with 3 verbs of 3 actions, and I think that they are very important to design in general and to human-centered design in particular when we talk about designing the organization. I will explain to you now what I mean with that. We've already seen this very nice quote from Professor Xi. It's clear we have a similar approach to design and a similar background in education. Sometimes that comes true, but it's not bad to repeat again what George Nelson has said. I've got the 1979 version, but that's from his book, The Problems of Design. A very good book, I recommend. And it just highlights again why designers should even bother with the organization itself. So not with the products alone, but perhaps also consider the organization as a product of design. Still struggling here? Human-centered design supports organizational transformation when it inquires into human experiences, when it invents new possibilities for human interaction, and when it integrates organizational systems. The interesting thing there is when you look at it and think design, there's not yet really a product or a service or anything special. It's very broad, and yet we have all the elements that we can apply to the development of any kind of product. Human experience, human interaction, and integration of these experiences in an organizational context. What do we do? What do we mean with that? So, the objectives of human-centered design in the organizational context are that we first of all start looking at the organization itself as a kind of object of study of design, where we identify, articulate, and understand an organization's current design approaches at the very moment when this organization seeks to develop new innovation approaches and new innovative outcomes. Now, you have to think for a moment. It says here, current design approaches. When I say current design approaches, I do, first of all, not look at, how do they actually manage their project management of design X or Y? How do they develop this particular project? I'm looking at the organization itself as the organization, how it thinks about design, how it actually goes about becoming an organization, working as an organization, and for that reason, in the second point, is this here? The reason that the way we do this is by understanding what are the design principles, the design practices, the design processes, and the design methods that this organization is using right now, and which we need to kind of understand in order to perhaps change them in a way so that we can prepare the ground for new capabilities and for developing new capacities for designing in this organization. So the point and the end is that we want to enable the organization to continuously conceive of, plan, develop, and deliver something of value and relevance for the people, and of value and relevance to the people that the organization cares about. So this is one thing that we can agree on across all organizations, public and private. An organization has to come up with something that offers value to someone and that is relevant to someone. So relevance and value are the key issues for organizations, the key challenges. If you are a government agency and you offer something that's not relevant to people, you fail. If you're a business organization that offers something that is not valuable to people, you fail. Value and relevance are two key issues for any kind of organization. So I wanted to say a little bit about what we do when we do research in design, organization, and management. And the introduction was, I think, I wasn't listening in the English translation, but probably telling you that I'm also heading the Competence Center for Design and Management at the Lucerne University of Applied Sciences and Arts in Switzerland. And for that reason, I want to quickly give you a broader context of what I'm showing you here. When we research in design, organization, and management, then we pursue the relevance and value of human-centered design in public and private organizations. We're trying to understand what that is, and we're trying to figure out how we can best design to achieve these kind of outcomes. We connect these issues, and this was also nice because Mariana mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals as well already. We connect these issues with the digitalization agenda, but also with the Sustainable Development Goals. And I would add to what Mariana has already said, for anyone here in this room, every single box of these 17 Sustainable Development Goals calls for new design practices, new design thinking, new design methods, new design principles. Every single box will not be able to achieve any change unless we address the core ideas of design behind it. So this also means we're looking at managing as designing. That is the idea that managers themselves are also designers. They are shaping their organizations, they are shaping the environment in which we then create products and services. And that comes originally from Boland and Calapi, also at the Case Western Reserve University in the US. And there is this big underlying hypothesis that I like to highlight, and it comes back with Herbert Simon, and that is that designing is inseparable from change. And every change offers an opportunity for innovation. I'll talk mostly about this in the next slides, but just as to underline once again, who was the person who actually made this first inseparable connection between design and change, it was Herbert Simon. Whenever we attempt to turn an existing situation into a preferred one, we are already in the process of designing. So, now it gets interesting. Very simple kind of bubbles on the wall. And the question is, what do we do with them? Well, when we talk about transforming organizations through human-centered design, we first of all should start thinking about where is design in the organization. And there is some work I've started a long time ago, but it just gives you 4 basic places. They're not all of the places, there are many more, but these are the 4 key areas where you can say, okay, there is design, which is disconnected from organizational matters. And I actually wondered with Mariana if the UNICEF is partially in this corner, because when you're in this area, all of your designing happens in projects, and these projects are actually not exactly in the organization. So UNICEF doesn't change much, but UNICEF changes things through the project. We have design, which is peripheral to organizational matters, which means that you may have a design department or someone responsible for design in the organization, but they are somewhere there. You know they exist, and they have a little task, but with the rest of the organization, they don't have so much to do. Then you have design, which is central to organizational success. Well, we know that Apple is there, Everything about Apple is about making design central to the organizational success. You have the form language, you have the products, you have the whole brand experience, corporate identity, everything works together. And then we have this other area, which is an area where we talk about design being integral to an organization, to its own organizational development. The interesting thing is, we find this kind of work mostly in the public sector. This is interesting, where people are beginning to work much more with design on an organizational development level than private businesses. This kind of thinking about design and where is it in the organization is then also feeding into different kinds of areas in design right now. For example, UWE from, oops, there's something funny reference. He used this to talk about interaction design and the consequences of what these relationships between design and the organization have for interaction design. What kind of interactions are here depicted? What kind of interactions can we deduct from that? And what does that mean for interaction designers who want to change some of these particular situations? Because it's a situation where we start from when we want to transform organizations. We see the same bubbles now being used in government innovation, because again, we have to think about different ways in which innovation is taking place right now in the public sector. And again, we find these ideas that there's an innovation lab, maybe in the first situation, an innovation lab somewhere out there, away from a government agency which is very old and very difficult to change, so we start innovation somewhere else. But there are some examples where we have innovation within a particular government agency where designers work with current public managers in their everyday environment to start doing things differently. So we looked at where we find design in the organization, and the interesting thing then is too that the next step would be design principles. What kind of design principles are at work in an organization? Yeah? So you can start when you look at an organization and you want to transform it. One question is, okay, where is design in this organization? What does the organization actually mean when they talk about design? And here we can start in a second approach, start talking about design principles. And then it's very helpful, again, Mariana explained that already, that many of the governments today have derived from the 19th century. Well, this is the the Prussian military from 1779, which was in Germany. Many of you may not know that, but it was a German local empire, very small in compared to anything in Asia, but it was important in Europe and it was important in Germany. And because at the time he had all these areas, he needed a different kind of way of managing it. And so he came up with this management system. And interestingly enough, this is the management system that still goes on today in Germany. This is today's German, the University for Public Administrative Sciences in Germany. And you can even see the building, everything follows this rationale of the military, where you have straight tasks and straight resources and separations of responsibilities. And there are studies now that show that even in the US, this kind of model can still be traced to the public sector. What does that do? Now, why are we even looking at design principles? I'm going to show you the English version of this. This is the original, and this is the English version, and I I just showed you a picture of this German building, right? And in this German building, which is a university for public sector, for public administrative sciences, and this university is really trying to develop new and innovative approaches to public administration and public management. And so they have started a 5-year initiative for innovation in the public sector with digitalization, with all sorts of interesting aspects. But here's the problem. They're not aware of their design principles. What happens? This is outside of the room where we had the innovation launch, right? So inside of the room with innovation launch, we're talking about, yes, this is what we want to do, and here's the new government and creative bureaucracy. And I go outside, and this very same organization puts the bottles linear, like in the military, right? And tells you, you can't touch this. Everything is very much the old design principle that's running this organization. And they don't understand that there is a problem between this reality and that ambition. And so designing is one of the ways in which we articulate these kind of, as situations to help people realize that maybe we have to start thinking not only in this one project about innovation, but we have to actually go deeper into our system and start talking about how do we go about allowing innovation. This is a very forbidding environment. I'm gonna introduce you to another concept here that I'm working with and that I've developed, and that is generally referred to as the 4 core organizational activities. My claim is that every organization has to engage in these 4 activities. So an organization has to design because they have to offer something of value and relevance, so they have to go about it. Well, when they design, they have to engage with change, because anytime we design something, there is some kind of change. We don't know what changes, but we know something changes. And the moment we change, we have to start thinking about reorganizing anything from structures, ideas, thought, and action, resources. And also, this all has to be managed. And I don't have the time to talk about all 4 core elements today, but I will tell you 2 which are managing, just to give you an idea how we use in human-centered design these kind of activities to start changing. So there's 2 ways to go about managing in this context. One of them is you manage for emergence. That's very much the way that we like it in design. We don't know yet what's coming out at the end, but we develop a design process so that we can slowly but slowly, through user research, for example, working with people, stakeholders, understanding situations, and then develop ideas, concepts, test them, evaluate them, and prototype them. Until at the end we have something that we didn't know existed, or that we didn't know we wanted to create, but we did it because we generated all this evidence along the way. So this management approach also supports organizational strategies that pursue exploration. James March has written about this, exploration and exploitation. And most of these, or this kind of approach is very much geared towards the idea of solving or addressing, not solving, but addressing wicked problems. A second approach, and this is the approach we find very, very often in management and in organizations. This is the deterministic management. That is when we manage activities in a way that they support the realization of an already known outcome, an approach or product. So, I know I want to create a printer that uses no ink. It's kind of an oxymoron, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's an electronic printer. But if I know that it will be a printer, I've already kind of given the goal. I know where I need to be. There's still many problems that I need to design, invent, all that, but I know it's going to be a printer. But when I say I want to improve the care for patients, let's say the care for cancer patients in the terminal stage, what am I going to do? I don't know. It's a very different question, and it requires a very different kind of management approach. So the deterministic management approach supports what we call the exploitation strategy in organizations, and in Riddle and Weber's terms, it would be about tame problems. So all of these boxes here that you have, we can start talking about these different aspects and different approaches that then have a consequence for how we can transform the organization. Because one thing is clear, if and you may not agree with me, but if I'm correct, then these are the 4 core organizational activities. Anytime I make a change somewhere, because they're all interconnected, something else changes too. That is, we are interfering with the organization, we are changing the organization one way or another. And the question is, how should that change take place? And as human-centered designers, we insist that this has to serve people in the end. It has to be something that improves lives for people in individual situations and in society as a whole. This is an example that I thought I'm going to throw at you quickly, and because technology is a factor in this conference. And this is an example of an organization where they have an innovation department. That was last year. This year, they feel like they need to become more technological, more digital. So they created all this informatics and logistics and replaced innovation with this corner. And this knowledge management, which was up before, is now out. Oh, sorry, something's wrong here. And there's a bit of a problem from a human-centered design approach when we talk about inquiring, inventing, and integrating, because when we just leave it here, there's no integration. And it's a very deterministic management approach. So we take something that's already existing or that we already can think of, and we make it digital. But another approach is to start inquiring into the organization, into the people, the stakeholders, the customers, the people in the personnel, and the people in the individual departments, and to start thinking and looking at what are the challenges and what will the organization look like in 5 years from now, and how do we want it to look in 5 years from now, and what kinds of services and products that we have today may no longer be interesting, may no longer be needed, but maybe there's a new opportunity for new ones. How are we going about that? And this is where we talk about what I call, when you see this, designing design. So designing design means we're stepping, even before we go into a particular product or service, we're designing the way that we go about designing. And when we talk about human-centered design in organizational transformation, that is, I would say, the trend in which we're moving with design, because we know how to design services. But if we design services without including an inquiry into the organization, that service is like in the bubble, just one thing on the side, but it doesn't help the organization to rethink itself, or as Shin said, to understand its purpose or challenge its vision and see if that still holds, or if a new vision is needed, or a new purpose. So human-centered design supports organizational transformation by inquiring into human experiences, by inventing new possibilities for human interaction, by integrating organizational systems in order to help organizations provide the greatest possible value and relevance to people that these organizations care about. And I think I'm pretty much at my end here, but I want to leave you with this image, because if you keep this in mind, you can play with it. I challenge you. Take notes and then see what it means. What are you designing? For whom? Why? Okay, if you figured this out, what is changing? Is it your structure, the organization? Is it a resource that turns into a constraint? Or a constraint that turns into a resource? Is it your thinking about something that changes? Is it your action that changes? Are you looking for people to change their behavior? And what does it mean for organizing? What is it that you must or should or want to organize and reorganize? And again, you can ask very similar questions. Is it material? You know, you move something from one end to the other. You change the color of a shirt. You say, this is a shirt, but maybe it's a dress. So I just changed the thinking, by the way. Or are you looking into different kinds of management approaches? The question is, what is your design principle here in the center? And in human-centered design, it will be people, and people will always be involved, and people will always be the ones who will benefit, and if it's not well done, suffer from your design consequences. Oops. Oops. And I would like to end here, and thank you very much.